Can he drive?
Can he drive? You know what DK stands for?
Donkey Kong?
Drift King.
Drift? What do you mean, drift?
I've been on the tracks for a while and on the streets, but I'll still have my Doom Eternal around the corner, or another type of shooter that I'll talk about, or any other type of game that I'll talk about. But for now, I've got what is one of the funniest and funnest arcade racing games that I've played in a good while, and that is Parking Garage Rally Circuit. It's like if you took Mario Kart's drifting, the setting of parking garages, and the cars that you see in rally racing, and bundled them together. Well, this is what you pretty much get. Oh, and also the idea of it being a Sega Saturn inspired game. Parking Garage Rally Circuit was developed by Wallaber, who is also known for developing Pro Gymnast Simulator and Jelly Car Worlds, two other unique and interesting titles that show off the developer's talents and knowledge of using soft body physics in Jelly Car Worlds, and his experience in gymnastics and diving in Pro Gymnast Simulator. This game, however, is a lot more arcadey and reflective of an older platform from the 90s, in the same era as the PS1 and N64, the Sega Saturn. I never owned this platform as a kid, and believe it or not, the only Saturn game that I ever played was Sonic R. But for its time, it had some impressive hardware for a console, and there are some titles that look interesting, so it is something that I will delve into down the track, no pun intended. For now though, I'm going to see what's under the hood with this game and what it has to offer. Starting off, you'll have a tutorial that introduces you to the overall gameplay and the mechanics. Your starting vehicle has the ability to drift, which will give you a boost. The longer you hold it, the more powerful your boost will be. This will be your main approach to developing higher speed on the maps that you partake in. When you're not drifting, your car is painfully slow and it'll feel like you're going below the speed limit on main roads. If you've ever played Mario Kart though, then the drifting mechanic will click straight away. Each track gets more complex as you unlock them, but the loop is still the same. You drift around the corner and build up as much speed and handle the car as best you can in order to win a trophy that will then unlock the next track. When it comes to the driving itself, it goes the opposite end of being realistic and goes for a more modernized, 90s-centric driving model. This is where the fun comes into play, as well as the frustrations. Its physics are very wonky and will at times do an anime betrayal on you, but on the same token, it also makes for a lot of bizarre and fun moments when you're not worried about the best time or getting the gold trophy. The main difference between the three cars will be the speed. The drifting between each car will be easier or harder, depending on how fast you're going overall. And on some tracks, going too fast can actually be a detriment to your lap time and set you back, especially when you get sent off the entire area or miss checkpoints. To unlock the next car, you have to complete all of the available tracks and get at least a bronze trophy for each one. Silver and gold aren't necessary, but they're incentives to keep replaying the races until you get them. The car designs are solid and have multiple liveries to use, and you can even change the color of those liveries. And not just the preset colors that you have on the screen, but you also have the option of using color codes. This means that you can use pretty much any color you can think of, provided that you know the code to that color. While this is an awesome feature to have, it would be nice to have a color wheel for more seamless color changing. It doesn't take long to complete the tracks themselves, but you'll be revisiting them for three main incentives, the first one being the trophies. Getting gold can be challenging because it requires knowledge of the map layout as well as your handling on the car and its drifting mechanics. Getting setbacks can be costly, and when you're not producing enough speed, you'll never catch up. Quick tip, when you do a big boost, keep drifting afterwards to give your car an even bigger boost. I didn't realize you could do this until the Liberty Island map, and trust me, it'll make a huge difference on that map. While the handling model can be frustrating sometimes, it can equally be fun because of the wonky physics and the arcade-centric model that makes for some fun and unique races, even though you're playing on the same maps. The second incentive will be the leaderboard system. It's there if you want to reach the top scores, which is in the races and the endurance races. The endurance races have you doing an infinite number of laps. Each checkpoint will add additional time but gets less generous over the course of the race, which is why it's in your best interest to keep building up your speed and manage your handling. When the timer runs out, you lose control of your acceleration, but you can still drift and keep boosting. When the car stops completely, the race is over. Leaderboards are there for people that are more dedicated to the game and can be an incentive to improve. But for me, it's not that important because I'm not really a dedicated gamer where I can just stick to one thing all of the time. For me, that's boring. I like to mix things up. The leaderboard though is there for those that want to grind the game out and get to the top. The third incentive is of course unlocking the cars, which doesn't take very long anyway, and if you don't want to bother with it in the first place, you can go to the options and just unlock everything off the bat. Also, for an additional vehicle, you can add the word D-pad into the cheats, and you get this thing. It's very thick and wide and also has the buttons on top that actually responds to your inputs, which is pretty cool actually. Other than that, it occupies a bit too much space for my liking. Speaking of the maps in this game are fantastic. Great variety between each other, even though they share the same theme of being in a parking garage. Each map is based in a real-life area in the US, and each area will present its own unique challenges. One map could have you dodging giant boulders, another one could have you racing in the dark, going through snow and dodging snowplows, or jumping across different spiral parking garages. They get harder with each track, but become more unique and stand out more. Having fun maps to drive in is just as important as having a fun driving model, a model that also accommodates for the design of these races. I didn't really have a problem with any of the cars unless you count the lack of skill, but the physics, while wonky, can do things you weren't planning to do, and when you're trying to beat your score or get the gold trophies, it can make the game frustrating. You also have some great graphical options that tie into the retro aesthetics of the game, and if you don't want any of the small resolution presets or the CRT filtering, you can just use the modern PC port option, which makes everything a lot clearer. Other than the single player, you also have the multiplayer, which I haven't been able to play because there aren't any available lobbies. All I can assume is that it works in a similar fashion to the single player, where you're not just racing ghost cars that represent the trophies or players in the leaderboard, but against active players in the race. While it may break the loop, it could still be fun to have a mode where you can make physical contact with the cars in the race, which could make for a lot of chaotic opportunities that would make getting blue shelled in Mario Kart look easy to deal with in comparison. Also, an additional free roaming mode where your mind isn't occupied with scoring or trophy collecting would be a nice touch. In any event, this is one of the best indie racing games I've ever played, and it isn't even finished yet, due to being in a playtest phase. One that has a unique and fun idea, really nice retro-inspired graphics and aesthetics, with an arcadey driving physics system and driving model that's both fun and sometimes chaotic. An awesome soundtrack that's got a real big fish in the mix, or a Goldfinger on the trumpets. Whether it's arena shooters or racing games or any other type of niche genre or type of genre, both communities and other communities like them have had their hand out waiting for the next big thing, or wanting something more or something like the old days. But they often forget about a lot of the other great games that slip through the cracks, and this is one of them. If you're really starving for more arcade racing games, then you need to start looking more in the indie space, because when you do, you'll find fun and enjoyable racing experiences like Parking Garage Rally Circuit. It's still in a playtest phase, but I'm really looking forward to seeing the final product, and in its current state, it's still absolutely worth checking out. Thanks for watching.